DW.
Happy birthday, Oludotun. I'm very glad that you've taken time out on your birthday to talk to WorldLink. You're a co-founder of Follow the Money, which, to sum it up, basically uses data journalism to track aid money and promise spending, and you publish your research online, and part of the focus is also you visit the communities which are promised specific funding and you see where it's gone and how effective that's been. My first question is, what drew you into this work then? How did you get drawn into this?
Number one was my background is from communities like this. Rural communities where you don't get to see policymakers all the time come into all those rural communities. And you always find on the news prints, like headlines, like governments giving lots of funds, lots of US dollars, pound sterling to these rural communities, either to build new infrastructures, which you wouldn't see. So that's a big concern for me.
So this was your own community that you grew up in. What's the name of that community? Can you share that?
Yeah, so I grew up in Agege in Lagos State, where you don't have that big infrastructures in the community. So it's one of the motivations. And over time, I've been doing monitoring and evaluation for several aid agencies. And we found out that there's still this massive gap in actually going on ground, because most of the things we do is evaluation and you don't go on ground. So that informs us starting Follow the Money. And one thing that we said was how this data that will be available, how will they help or impact or empower these rural communities that are marginalized. After some months, we got our first request from an international agency. Like, there are funds that are meant to clean up a community, and for the last 2 years, those communities has been there without no intervention.
Okay, so the money didn't go where it was supposed to go and didn't do what it was supposed to do. So this got you started.
Yep. So that was what triggered us, and we got to start in Bagega, to be specific, in Zamfara State, which is in northern Nigeria. When we were doing our ground routing, a whole lot of the groups, women groups, youth groups, talked about many times that the government has come and promised them that this amount of money will be used in cleaning up your communities, which never happened.
Just to clarify, what do we mean by a clean-up?
So the community was contaminated by lead, which was affecting children that are less than 5 years old. About 1,500 children were at risk in Bagega then, because of just that the community was contaminated, and children were dying also at that time, because it resulted into lead poisoning, which got us interested. And at that time, we were lucky because what we had to do was advocate for the cleanup of that community and provision of funds for the cleanup. We kept pressuring the government, and eventually they released about 48 million USD. So our work started when they released the funds, so that the same story wouldn't come up again. We had to make sure the funds were really used in cleaning up the communities by going to the communities every month, by organizing stakeholders meetings that will bring the beneficiaries, that will bring the governments that are concerned in cleaning up the community, that will bring other media organizations together to always talk about this.
Have you had any other examples where you could explain quickly, how your initiative has been effective?
Yeah, there was this Gutsura is another community where we had 3,000 citizens that were supposed to be relocated because it was a flood-prone community. Every year that community loses a whole lot to flooding, and it's an agrarian community whereby the livelihood depends on agric as well. So we found out that the government promised them 120 million naira, but the community never saw anyone to relocate them. The only thing that happened was that they told the community that, we had a land for you guys, so you can move to the land. But the buildings that were supposed to be on the land for them to move to weren't there. And we did advocate via Twitter, via Facebook, via same stakeholders meetings as well, talking to the government of the states to provide funds. And afterwards, the funds were available to get the community relocated. Right now, Gutsura has been relocated to a new site.
So the community pressure worked?
Yeah.
What challenges has the initiative come up against? Because, I mean, you're following the money. You might be following it to somewhere where someone doesn't want it to be found.
Yeah, we've had threats from government offices saying you guys should stop. You think you can change the world, you cannot, and all that. We've gotten threats of you're going to instigate communities. Several times, and before now we've had challenges of getting the perspectives of the communities themselves. They might not welcome you, or they will welcome you. So you don't know or what will happen in that community. Another challenge is availability of data. If we do not have data for a particular project in a community, we would not activate. And for some that we've started, we found out that there are no data, then we need to shut down that particular project. So those are some of the challenges that we've had.
And in the panel discussion just before, one of the things you said I thought was interesting was how now you're starting to get more of a positive reception from the government, and that might be because of your approach as well. Can you explain a bit more about that, how sort of the relationship between yourself and the people you're trying to hold accountable has changed over time?
Yeah, I mean, if you're at the stakeholders meeting and someone from the government says the reason why I follow the money on Twitter and on Facebook is because they are objective. So when we started this, we wanted to be as objective as we can be. So it's not as if the government isn't doing more or isn't doing anything at all. There are things they do very well, and we need to also talk about it. So if the government has provided a good road at the time they're supposed to be, we will talk about it. If they have provided good water system in a community, we will talk about it. If there are other communities they haven't, we will also talk about it. So this over time had created a relationship with government. And one thing is the government itself needed help at one point. They needed people to help them and follow through some of these spendings, which they never had. So we coming on board was like a big help for some of the government institutions. Also, the agents of anti-corruption in the country, they are now our big partners because they do not have resources to follow the money or track the money. So they found in us a resource bank to help follow the money through. And from the end of what we follow and do publication of, they can use that to enforce and take anyone that is found wanting to court.
Just finally, and I guess since it's your birthday, and I'm going to ask you to get a little bit reflective here, because you grew up, you just told me, in one of these communities that was promised things and didn't see the follow through, and this is one of the reasons that you're doing what you're doing. What would your message be to, I guess, your younger self, and yeah, and I guess, you know, the people that you're working with as well, you know, the communities that follow the money's going to. Yeah, what's your message to younger you?
Definitely, we always say we do not have all the power, and we can only do the little we can do to commit to changing our space, and not everywhere. So having said that, we all have the power, and you also do have the power to make that little change. You might not think of something big, but something small could be part of the whole change that we're all talking about.
Oludotun, thank you so much for talking with me on WorldLink.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
This report was brought to you by DW.